Hello beautiful faces! Thanks for stopping by whether you are new or returning. In today's video I wanted to talk about 20 series that I really want to read in 2025. Now I know a lot of people are doing 25 in 2025, but I just thought that's a reach. Even 20 is a reach, so I just thought let's just do 20 book series that I want to at least start. Some of the books I'm going to talk about in today's video are only duos or trilogies. I hope to have those done, but anything that's a bigger, like a 5-book series or a 7-book series or something like that, if I can at least start the series this year, that will make me happy. Without further ado, let's just jump right into the video talking about all of these 20 series. You're probably wondering what they are. Let's get into it. The first book series is probably going to be the most I don't really want to use the word boring, but everyone is talking about the series and I never used to want to read it, but suddenly I have mad interest and everybody's talking about the most recent release of it, and I just thought, you know what, I really want to finally find out what everybody is raving on about the series for, because everybody is raving on about this series. This is the Imperium series by Rebecca Yarros, better just known as the title of the first book, Fourth Wing. So Fourth Wing is book 1. This basically blew up. It's like the world's biggest romantasy series right now. Romantasy is fantasy romance, for anyone that doesn't really know. Basically like a fantasy book with a heavy subplot of romance in it. And there's like dragons in it and stuff. I just hear such good things about this series. And last year I was a little bit, if it was gigantically popular, I didn't want to read it. I didn't want to touch this last year. I didn't want to read, there's a couple of other series where I was like, I kind of want to read what no one is talking about. But now, all of a sudden, I basically need to read Fourth Wing, and I need to know why everybody loves Xaden so much. This is Iron Flame. This is the second book that you read when you're done with Fourth Wing. This is Onyx Storm. This is the most recent release, the one that everyone is chatting about right now. It came out on the 21st of January, and so yeah, really need to read this. I wonder if I should go by genre, because I started with a fantasy. Should I just talk about all the fantasies? Actually, I think I might. Originally, I was just going to talk about them in any sort of order, but we might do all of the fantasies first. We're going to do it by genre. Another romantic series that I really want to start this year, I think it's called God and Monsters, or it might be Something and Monsters. I don't 100% remember, but it's Something and Monsters, I think. Anyways, the first book is the Book of Azriel. I originally thought this was a fantasy romantic standalone. Apparently there's 4 books in this series, and they are a little on the chunky side, but I have huge interest in this. It's meant to be amazing. Supposedly this is a retelling reimagining. I forget what it's a retell reimagining of, but apparently it is. It just honestly looked so good. I have heard so many good reviews about this, so many good reviews. A lot of people say that if you were a romantasy lover, you desperately need to pick up this series. It's spicy. Apparently it's also a little bit dark as well, because there is a subcategory of romantasy called dark romantasy, which is if romantasy and dark romance had a baby. So supposedly this is a little on the darker side as well. So I'd be very interested to see what that is like. Honestly cannot wait to pick this up. I'm probably going to do Fourth Wing first, but I would love to pick this up this year. Lastly, for the romantasies, and then I do actually have a fantasy for you, which I'll get to that. Anyways, I really want to read Zodiac Academy. I don't own it physically, so you are just looking at computer generated images, but I have huge interest in Zodiac Academy. Again, this is one that I just hope to maybe start, because there's 9 books in it. Then there's a 5-book prequel and a 4-book sequel. I just want to at least start the original 9-book series this year. Again, it's another, I think it's a little on the darker side. It is a bit of a bully romance, but I have huge interest in this series. So many people rave and rave on about it. A lot of people actually, they very much dislike that first book, but they say once you get through the first book, you're hooked, and then when you kind of get more into the series, you understand why book one was the way that it was. Now, it's one of those, it gradually gets spicier. There's a really popular booktuber, booktalker out there, Jamie Johnson, which I love her videos, by the way. They're great. She loves Zodiac Academy. She is like the unofficial like Zodiac Academy guide queen. Anyways, she gets asked a lot about like the spiciness of it, and I watched her video, which was actually very informative, which was very good. And it was like, the beginning of the series is not that spicy because it is an slow burn, enemies to lovers. But then like towards the middle and the end, it gets like a lot more spicy. So, because a lot of people say that it's not, but it's like, no, it is. You just gotta wait for it because it's a slow burn. Like, they're not just gonna suddenly start out going at it. Clearly not. And I don't usually love slow burn, but I found out that in a fantasy, I'm kind of okay with that, because when you have enemies to lovers, I feel like you can't have enemies to lovers without a little bit of a slow burn, because they're enemies at first, you know what I mean? So I'm very, very excited to read Zodiac Academy. I've heard nothing but good things. So many, even people that were like, oh, I'm not sure if it's for me, they start it and then they love it. Like, I have not seen a singular bad review for Zodiac Academy. And that's saying something, but like, I desperately want to read Zodiac Academy. Now, lastly, in the fantasy category, I have a proper just general fantasy for you. But this series, high fantasy readers absolutely love it, but supposedly also romantasy readers love it. So I think there might be like a tiny bit of romance in it, not enough to call it a romantasy, and I don't think that it's spicy at all. But it's the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. I hear so many good things. This is another book series that I have heard like 0 bad reviews for. Like, try and Google a Greenbone Saga bad review. I don't think that you can find one. I just hear so many good things. It's Asian inspired fantasy, so like the fighting style I think is martial arts instead of just like punching people. I have just heard like so many good things about this series. Like I said, romantasy readers love it. High fantasy readers love it. A lot of high fantasy readers say that like if you are mainly a romantasy reader and you want to give a regular sort of like more high fantasy style book a go, they say that the Greenbone Saga is a great way to do that. And yet, only a trilogy, so I wouldn't be committing to too many books. And yeah, so I just thought I'd give it a go because I'd like to see if other types of fantasies out there are great. I mean, because I already know I love romantasy, but I want to see like, hey, do I only like romantasy, or can I be open to other types of fantasy books? Because I am open to giving anything a go when it comes to reading. I'm willing to read anything. So I'd be very interested to see what I think. Now we're going to move on to Litfic, and I've only got one Litfic, only the one, because I don't really read a ton of Litfic, and this is also more of a magical realism Litfic, so it's got a little bit of fantasy in there. This is the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series. Now, this is by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. I'm so sorry if I butchered that. It is a Japanese name. I always have to read it when I say it, or else I'm saying it even worse than how I said it. Now, you'll notice that book 1 is missing. I have actually read book 1 and I very much enjoyed myself. So, I really want to continue this series this year and read the other 4. Now, these are very, very, very thin books, but they also have some of the prettiest covers known to man. I'm going to show you. This is the cover of book 2, Before the Coffee Gets Cold, Tales from the Cafe. Then you have, this is the 3rd book, Before Your Memory Fades. This is the 4th book, Before We Say Goodbye. And this is the 5th book, most recently released last year, Before We Forget Kindness. Now, I'm not a gigantic literary fiction reader, but reading the first book in this series and also reading a different Japanese translated fic that I read last year, I've come to realise that maybe I don't hate lit fic as much as I thought, but I think I much, much, much prefer the Japanese translated type. They all seem to have more of a cutesy element to them, or a magical realism element to them, and to me I find those more enjoyable, because I did also try to read Yellowface last year as well, which was a literary fiction by Rebecca F. Kuan. Now, I would definitely be open to giving other R.F. Kuan books a go. Personally, Yellowface was not for me. Just personally, I didn't love Yellowface. Just personally, no. So, but I have heard like amazing things about Babel, so I would probably really like to give Babel a go. But I have just decided that I think literary fictions in this sort of style are more my thing. This was so adorable, like the first book in this series was so adorable, and I cannot wait to read the next 4. Speaking of series I'd like to continue, I've got 2 others in this pile that are like, started them last year, want to continue them this year. So let me just quickly talk about like those ones and then we'll get into the other ones. So another series that I would really like to continue this year is the Magnolia Parks universe. I read the first 2 books last year, so Magnolia Parks and Daisy Hates. I have the next 3 to go and then whatever else that she releases because the series is not finished. Magnolia Parks A Long Way Home, that's the 3rd book. Daisy Hates The Great Undoing is the 4th. Then Magnolia Parks Into the Dark, this is the 5th book so far. This is also the last in Magnolia's story because there's an overarching plot throughout the whole series. So you do need to read it in order. But different books do follow different like couples. So even though there is an overarching plot. So books 1, 3 and 5 are Magnolia Parks' story. And the 5th book, this is the last of Magnolia. We're not getting any more Magnolia. Then books 2 and 4 are Daisy's. And it was also confirmed that there are going to be 2 more Daisy books coming. I just absolutely like love and froth this series. It's kind of like Gossip Girl, but set in the UK and a lot of drama. This I'd say is a little like darker, but obviously because this is written for more of an aged up audience, because the Gossip Girl books, I think they are very like for teenagers, whereas like these are full on adult books. But I loved the first 2 books in this series, absolutely loved, so I cannot wait to read the rest of them. Lastly for the series I want to continue, and then we'll get into the rest of them that are like, I've not started these, is this is the Dream Harbour series by Laurie Gilmore. Now, 2 ways that this series is marketed is apparently if you're a fan of the Gilmore Girls, which is hilarious because the last name is Gilmore, or if you are a fan of Hallmark Christmas movies. So, I do not like the Gilmore Girls. Personally, not a show for me. But I do like Hallmark Christmas films. So, in December last year, I actually read the 3rd book, which is very different from me. Personally, even if it's an interconnected standalone series and you don't have to read it in order, personally, I will always read the series in order. Just always. It's a thing. I just will always read it in order. I have to. It's just a me thing. Anyways, I broke my me thing and I read the 3rd book, which is called The Christmas Tree Farms. I read that in December because I desperately wanted to start this series, but I kind of just desperately wanted to read the Christmassy one because we were in the Christmas month. But I didn't, like I said, I really wanted to start the series, but I wasn't necessarily as desperate to binge all 3 at once. I just wanted to read like one of them. But then I thought, it's December, I really want to read the Christmassy one. So I broke my rule and just thought, it is interconnected. You don't have to read them in order. So I read the 3rd one first, meaning I have these 2 that I need to read next. The Pumpkin Spice Cafe is the 1st one. The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore is the 2nd one. This is another series that has like some of the cutest covers ever, and they're like of the businesses. So like this is the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. So I'm very excited to continue this series. 2 other books in this series have been confirmed. I know the Strawberry Patch Bakehouse. Oh no, the Strawberry Patch Pancake Bakehouse is the 4th book, and that comes out I think early this year. And then you've got the Something Gingerbread House. Oh no, the Gingerbread Bakery, which I think that comes out late this year. Anyways, I'm so excited. I genuinely love this because I loved the Christmas Tree Farms. And that's actually a bit of an unpopular opinion. The Dream Harbour series is actually a series where it's really hard to find any good reviews. A lot of people seem to think that it's quite cringy. That's the thing. They are kind of like Hallmark movies. In the dedication of the Christmas Tree Farms, it was basically, if you wish that Hallmark Christmas movies had sex. Like, she knows what she's writing. She's not trying to make it anything that it's not. I just love them. I think they're a fun time. You know, you don't have to really concentrate. They are in 3rd person because I did notice that the Christmas Tree Farms was in 3rd person. Usually I hate 3rd person, but I actually didn't mind it in this series. Like, I don't know why, but I actually didn't care that it was 3rd person. And usually I very much so care and don't like 3rd person. But in this series, I actually didn't mind it. But I thought, yeah, I probably should tell you this because I know that some people will just refuse to read things that's third person. Personally, I don't know why, because you could miss out on a great book, but I know that there are some people that just will not if it's not first person. So yeah, the Dream Harbour series is in third person. I want to move on to my all-time favourite book genre to read, which is dark romance. Let's get into it. First, I've actually got some dark sports romances, which are dark romance and sports romance have a baby. First, this is the Pucking Wrong series. So these first two ones I have here, the Pucking Wrong Guy and the Pucking Wrong Number, they're the first two in the series. I only own the first two physically, but I think there's 4 books in this series. I have huge interest in it. I've heard amazing, amazing things about this series. It's just like, it's so good. Apparently in one of them, and I don't remember which book in the series, but I remember in one of them, the guy tattoos the FMC's name down south. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy obsession right there. Like, let me tell you, that's crazy obsession. And I need to read these books pronto. Sticking with dark sports, and I only own the first book physically, so I will also put some pictures up. We have Hockey Gods by S. Massery. This is the first book, Brutal Obsession. This is, again, these are dark sports romances. Now, this one, oh my god, this is supposedly, like, this is dark. Like, dark. Like, I'm talking, and I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, but I think it actually will say this on the back. So I think she gets hit by him with a car, but then, like, he's mad at her for it. Like, that's how it starts, and just like, oh my god, like, this is just crazy. This is a 5-book series. I desperately need to read these. These have been on my TBR for so long. Everyone is obsessed with it. Like, I see so many good reviews for it. Like, I know Larry really likes these books. And yeah, I desperately need to read this, like, now. Next for dark romance, we have a bit of a dark paranormal. We've got the Souls trilogy by Harley LaRue. So, Her Soul to Take being book 1. Her Soul for Revenge, book 2, Soul of a Witch, book 3. So these are all like demon romances. Now, I read The Loser's Duo by Harley LaRue last year and fell in love with it. So I knew that the Souls trilogy is next on my list of books that I just must read. My friend has read these and loved them and says that I desperately need to. Basically, everyone on the internet is in love with this book series. But I also heard that, like, Harley LaRue is like the king, not the king, the queen of like aftercare and consent and stuff. Like, she always like writes a lot of that in her books, which I love that because that is like so hot. So I like desperately need to read this series like yesterday because I love Harley LaRue. Another dark romance author I fell in love with last year was Rena Kent when I read her Legacy of Gods series. And now I own the entirety of the Royal Elite series and I want to read that as well. So I'll tell you the order. Sorry, this is backwards. So the very last book is the Royal Elite epilogue book because there is an epilogue book. You start with Cruel King. This is Levi and Astrid's story. Then you've got the Aiden King trilogy. There's like a trilogy within this. Everybody only gets 1 book except for Aiden King. Apparently Aiden King gets 3. I don't know. Rena makes her own choices. Anyway, my main point is I desperately need to read these books because I am obsessed with Rena Kent and I basically want to read anything that she has ever written, and these book covers are stunning. Like, I need to read this series now. Lastly, for dark romance, and I don't own it physically, I've got Twisted Ink and Twisted Lace. I think this is just a duo, but I have huge interest in this duo. It's like a dark romance with tattoo artists, and just, oh my god, like, tell me that doesn't sound so hot. Like, tell me that doesn't sound like the hottest thing ever. Like, a dark tattoo guy. Like, I need to read this series yesterday as well. This has been on my radar for so long and the covers are honestly really cool. So I have huge interest in reading this series as well. Jesus, we've already been filming for about like 20 minutes. I'm going to try and not talk so long about the rest of the books. The next category is just romance. So these are all just like more like fluffier, like they're not dark, they're like normal romances now. A lot of them are sports romances because personally that is my favorite subgenre of romance is sports romance. So let's list them off. Actually, hilariously, this first one is not a sports, but I'm pretty sure that the rest of them are. Anyway, this is the Knock 'Em Out trilogy by Lucy Score. This blue book, that's the first. Then you read the pink one, then you read the purple one, which is the last one. Sorry for the cut there, my camera died. I probably look a little darker now. It is a little bit darker in the day, so the lighting isn't the best. I'm going to try and rapid fire through the rest of these ones. But like I was saying, I do have interest in the Knock 'Em Out series by Lucy Score. I have heard like amazing things about it. Now, I'm pretty sure that the rest of the ones on here are sports romances. As I was saying, sports romance is my favourite subgenre of like regular romance, because there are different types. You can have like small town, you can have cowboy, billionaire, whatever. Sports is personally my favourite. I read a ton of those, and there's quite a few that I would like to read this year. First one being, this is the Playing for Keeps series by Becca Mack. There's 4 so far. I just have the first 2 here, Consider Me, Play With Me. And there is the 5th one coming out this year as well. These are your classic like college, sorry, I actually don't think this one's college. This is ones when they're already in the pros. It's ice hockey. Every member gets their story. Classic, you know how most sports romances go. Fits the mold. But I love me a sports romance. And this just looked so good. I'd say these are like medium-sized books. So they're not too chunky, but they're not too thin either. And I have just heard so many good reviews. So many good reviews. A lot of people say if you like the Windy City series, you should read this. I haven't read Windy City either. I actually would like to read Windy City. It's not on this list. I'm a little bit terrified of Windy City, but I do really want to read this series. Another series, because I'm just so surprised that I have yet to read it, is the Maple Hill series. So Icebreaker, Wildfire, and most recently Daydream. This is very similar to when I was talking about Fourth Wing. Last year, like I was saying, if it was really popular, I wanted nothing to do with it. Icebreaker is like the book of books. And I just did not have like zero interest in reading it. But recently I've been feeling a bit, can I call myself a reader without having read some of like the basic starter pack sorts of books? So I've decided that I am finally going to give Icebreaker a go. College, ice hockey with figure skater, spicy, you know, the drill. Though the cool thing about Maple Hill is that it's not always like that. So this first book is very sportsy. Then you have the second book, Wildfire, but it's set in the off season. And it's when they're both at a summer camp together. It's just that he also happens to be one of the members of that hockey team. But it's not really all that sportsy, that one. So this series is like awesome. I do hear a lot of people say really awesome things about it. So I'm just finally going to give it a go. Next we've got Collide and Spiral by Bel Cabra. I totally forget the overarching name of this series. I'm sorry about that. First book is Collide, and then recently the second book, Spiral, got released. There's one specific booktalker who I absolutely love, Belle Therese. So she says that Collide's kind of like Icebreaker's hot older sister. So I kind of want to read Icebreaker first, then I'm going to read Collide, and I want to see if I agree with that opinion or not. So I have huge interest in this. Again, I'm pretty sure these are ice hockey as well. In the first book, he's literally holding a hockey stick. So yeah, I have huge interest in this series. Lastly, to end the video off, I did make a video for my TikTok talking about more underrated, lesser known sports romance series. And one really caught my eye, which is the Nolan Yu Universe by Katie Archer. I think there are 6 books and there's also a couple of novellas that go along with it. And what I like about this series, it's college, so they're in like college age when they're doing, I don't actually remember what type of sport it is. I think it's either ice hockey or football. They're the 2 most popular sports that people pick when they're writing these books. So I think it's either one of those, or it might be basketball. It's probably one of those. But the vibes that I get from looking at the book covers and from looking at the back of the book, I think it might be set in the early 2000s. Now, I'm a sucker for anything. You give me anything set in the early 2000s. Some of my all-time favourite movies are those cheesy early 2000s rom-coms, early 2000s, like comedy films, like anything in that time I absolutely love. Like, you know, Bridesmaids, 27 Dresses, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, She's the Man, like all of those films. I love those films. So, and I could be wrong, I don't actually know when they're set, but it gives me the vibes. Like, it's kind of like I'm predicting. Like, I really have a feeling it's set then. I could be wrong, but that's just what I think. So I'd be interested to read it and see if it is or not. But that would be interesting because a lot of the sports romances, they are just set in present day. So this one would be interesting and different because it's not set in present day. So that'd be interesting and cool to read about. Now, the last book series is book series number 20. We have the one and only Small Town to make the list. Now, I totally forgot that this is actually a series that I want to continue. I read the first book in February, which I will talk about when I do the February reading wrap up, but it's the True Scotsman series. The first book is The Highland Kiss, which I have read, but there are 4 others and they're all called like the Highland blank. That's what they're all called, like the Highland something, the Highland something. And what I like about this series, and what really drew me in, is that it's set in Scotland. So all the men are Scottish, and like, ugh, I have a little bit of thing for Scottish/Irish men. I don't know why, but they really seem to do it for me. So I was so interested in the fact that it's not just like any sort of small town, like it's set in Scotland. I actually got the first 2 books for free on a Stuff Your Kindle Day. It was an indie romance Stuff Your Kindle Day, so like indie authors were all getting together and offering some free books to try. So that was one that I personally got, and I just desperately wanted to start reading it, so I read the first one. So I have read the first one, but there's 4 others, and I would really like to continue the series this year. They're all like, they all follow different like couples, but they're all within this like one friend group. The first book, I'll give you a bit of a premise. She's set to marry this guy, but then he like leaves her on the day of the wedding. And then she's like, well, what do I do? Like, I have a month off for my honeymoon, but I clearly don't want to go on that. So she takes herself to Scotland and it goes from there. And yeah, I loved the first book, and I'm like desperate to continue the rest of this series. It's so like cute and wholesome, just because I'm not a big fan of small town books, so I'm quite surprised that I like True Scotsman so much. But I think just because it's different, like it's not set in America, which is cool and different. Like it's set somewhere, because every book is just set in America, which like fine. I will admit I love anything set in New York, but it's cool that this is just set somewhere different for a change. Rightio, that is it for the video. I didn't want to film too much because I don't really think that this is the best lighting, but I don't own a ring light, so I couldn't really make this any better. I had to like, because obviously I was filming earlier when there was better lighting, but then my camera died and I had to wait a little bit for it to charge. But now like it's darker in the day, so oh god. Anyways, so I tried to rapid fire through those last ones. I have just as much interest in them, I promise. The lighting is absolutely terrible, but I wasn't about to cut the video off halfway through either. So, and it's just a whole thing when you film. I gotta make sure I'm having a good hair day and all this other when I film. Anyways, that's basically it for the video. They are 20 series that I'm very excited to hopefully at least start them this year. So yeah, if you enjoyed, please consider subscribing and giving a thumbs up if you love books as much as I do. Alright, thanks for watching. Bye bye.